Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's speed reading crash course. My name is Cynthia, one of the instructors with Iris Reading. Happy to see you in the audience today. Thank you for finding our YouTube channel. We're very happy that you're watching this today. On there, we are trying to grow our presence here on YouTube. So we see someone already liked the video. That's great. If you can share, like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, we would really appreciate that. Now, starting off this morning, once again, we mentioned that we are talking about speed reading, and that's actually what we're known for here at Iris Reading. It's our #1 workshop. We have taught this workshop in over 100 cities around the world, so we're very, very proud of that. We're happy to see you here once again. I am curious, let me know in the chat if you've ever heard of us before, if you've ever taken a workshop with us before, or even if you've ever taken a speed reading class in the past. We are curious to see who we have in the audience today. Any questions you have, this is a live session, so please feel free to ask your questions and we'll do our best to answer them throughout the presentation. I'll also share my email at the end of the presentation, so you are more than welcome to reach out to me via email as well. We are also on social media here as well at Iris Reading, so if you do enjoy the content, if you do enjoy the presentation, then please check us out on Instagram, on Facebook, and we're also on TikTok. So give us a follow on there as well if you do enjoy today's presentation. Now, let's get into speed reading. Now, some people might have this funny reaction when you say speed reading where they kind of just roll their eyes like that and they're like, there's no such thing as a productive speed reader. That doesn't make sense, right? Well, we are here to hopefully prove you wrong. We are big fans of speed reading. We love to read, which is actually why we have a Facebook group that is all things related to reading and learning, all little fun, quirky things about books, whether that be random facts or just we have participants share what they're reading, what they liked, what they disliked about it. So our lives revolve around books and being able to read productively. And that's really what this is all about. We want you to read faster, but we also want you to be as much of a productive reader as possible. So we're going to break down speed reading today, 5 different bullet points. First being, we want to see how fast you currently read, okay? In order to kind of see if we're making progress or not, we have to establish a baseline, right? And so we'll do that today. You do not have to share if you don't want to. Please don't feel bad if you don't want to, if your reading speed is just a little, maybe you feel a little slower, it's okay, not a problem. Let's see, we have someone here from Bogotá. Bienvenido, Juan. Thank you so much for joining us. We're very happy to see you here. In the future, we are hoping to offer these as well on our YouTube channel as well in Spanish. So, thank you for coming. We appreciate that. Please share the video if you enjoy it. So we're going to start again with establishing a baseline. Let's see, our second bullet point will be improving your focus while reading. That is something that most of us may potentially struggle with, right? Where we're reading and we're distracted with either TikTok or texting, or there are so many things happening, and our brains are just so used to being hyperstimulated that when we have to zero in on a book or on some kind of passage, it's so hard for us to pay attention, right? Or maybe we're over caffeinated. Whatever the reason is, we have something that is very simple, very cost effective, that can help you pay attention. So we'll share that in a moment. We'll also talk about ways to improve your comprehension. So it's not just about reading faster, it's also about understanding faster as well. And comprehension is one of those funny things where we've noticed that a lot of people actually struggle with this, right? We're not sure what we should be asking, how we should be asking it. And so let's see, KB, I have not heard of you. I've also not taken a class like this. Well, happy to see you joined us today, KB. Please let us know what your thoughts are. Please share us if you do enjoy, again, today's presentation. So comprehension, again, it's like one of those things where you don't always get it, right? And so we've actually created a brand new presentation. We launched it at the beginning of this year, and it's all things related to comprehension. So it's 60 to 90 minutes, pure comprehension strategies, okay? Specifically, what questions you should be asking when you are trying to read something and it's just like, you know, it just feels like it's way out of your league. For example, I am a graduated nurse. I have a BSN in nursing. First semester of nursing school, I thought all the material was in a different language. That's how confused I was in nursing school, right? I had no idea how I should approach this material to better understand it. Had I known that, you know, 12, 13 years later, we'd be presenting something, or I'd be working with a company that is now focusing on speed and on comprehension, you know, would have had maybe a little more patience with myself. But nonetheless, here we are. So some improving comprehension strategies. That workshop will go live on Friday. If you are interested, please come back to check that out. We will touch on that today as well, with some simple strategies that can help you there, because again, we said we don't want you to just read fast. We want you to understand equally as fast, okay? How to read faster on the computer screen. A lot of us have had really no choice but to read on the computer screen, right? Especially through COVID. Now, thankfully, a lot of us can return to work, can return to school, can go back to the library and get paper textbooks and actual physical books, right? Through COVID, if you weren't necessarily used to reading and learning on the screen, it might have caused one too many headaches, right? And so we had created a program that could help you read faster on the computer screen prior to COVID, and it was very helpful for many participants. We received emails that this was something that helped them, again, when reading really long passages online or something from an email. So again, we'll share that with you all today. We'll talk about building up speed with practice as well. So it's not just about, you don't just automatically become a fast reader. We have to do what we call drills, right? With any hobby or with any skill, you have to practice. And if you want to be the fastest, you have to practice being fast as well, right? So we have created some drills, we'll call, that are going to help train you to read faster. Okay, so we won't get into it just yet. I'll share in a moment. And our final bullet point for today, some strategies for reading complex information. So think about what you read for fun versus what you read that is maybe very important, right? So if you're maybe reading a novel for fun, right, maybe with a cup of tea at the end of the day, you read that, right? You check your phone from time to time. So you have set strategies when reading something for, again, just for fun. And then what are your set strategies when reading something that is complex? Like a contract, like a loan agreement, right? Like something that, like signing a mortgage or signing on a house, right? All the papers that are involved there. What are the strategies that you use to make sure you're not only taking, you know, your time to read this, but you're actually understanding everything there? Okay, now most of us probably, and I can't say most of us because I'm a speed reading instructor, but most of the individuals that have taken these classes have told us that they thought there was just one way of reading and not reading everything the same way, right? But we have some strategies specific to when we're reading that high detail, very, very complex information. Okay, so we'll get into that in a moment. So our focus here at Iris Reading, we have 3 areas of focus, first being speed, okay? We want everybody who takes our workshops to read faster. That's the goal. But if you don't read faster by the end of the presentation, don't get discouraged. This, as I saw in the comments, is probably the first time that a lot of us have ever seen something like this, right? So you might want to come back and watch the recording over and over, right? You may want to reach out to us and see if we can work together. We also offer advanced courses as well. So don't be discouraged if you don't make as much progress as you hope you would. This takes time, right? This isn't automatic. So again, don't feel bad. Our second area of focus is comprehension. Now, keep in mind, we will discuss a little bit about comprehension today, but we also have that workshop on Friday where we're going to talk about all the questions you should be asking when reading something. So those two will be discussed today. We also like to consider ourselves memory masters, I guess you can say. My favorite workshop that Iris Reading offers is actually a memory techniques workshop, or improving your memory workshop, specific for students and working professionals that have a lot of things that they have to commit to memory. Okay, now memory is one of those funny things where you're kind of just expected to know how to use it, but you're never really told how to use it, right? We all know that the brain has incredible, it can do some amazing things, but if you have no idea how to tap into that, then what's it to you, right? So that memory workshop, we will go live tomorrow here on our YouTube channel as well. So if you want to check that out, please come back. So these are our three areas of focus. First two will be discussed today. Retention will be discussed tomorrow. Also something to keep in mind, comprehension and retention are not the same thing. Comprehension is understanding right now in the moment, and retention is remembering for later. Okay, so we don't want to confuse these two. Sometimes people confuse them. They're not the same thing. Okay, they are different. Now, most of us, if we're reading with Roman characters, right, we read something like this, right? So we've got the little green ball that's jumping across the screen. Hopefully not that slow, but that's the point, right? Unless you're maybe reading in Arabic or in Persian, right? So you're reading the ball goes the other way. But the point is, we go from word to word to word, right? Now, let's think about when we first learned how to read. And I always like to use the example of learning how to ride a bike with this as well. So when you learn how to ride a bike, you don't always, not everyone. I know there's some people that are advanced riders, right? But most kids will probably use some kind of training wheel when they first learn how to ride a bike, right? They're the little teeny tiny wheels that go on the side of the bike. And that's how you learn, how to balance yourself, right? You get more confident. That means you get faster. And at a certain point, you can only go so fast before these training wheels actually start to slow you down, right? And so we use this example to showcase how when you're reading, there are also these like training wheels that our teachers taught us to use and to rely on, because again, we were first learning how to figure out what the letters were and how the letters are all together, how they marry and become a word, right? But as time goes on, we get faster. And there's only so many, there's only so fast we can go before we're like, wait a minute, there are certain things that are actually slowing us down. So we're going to talk about 3 old reading habits. So 3 things that you may be doing right now that may be slowing you down. Now, if you identify with any of these, that's okay. We're going to talk about how to break free from them, or at least how to push them somewhere where they're not dominating as we are reading. So keep in mind, first part of the presentation, we are focusing on speed, in case anyone is taking notes, okay? So the first old reading habit is fixation. Okay, so fixation is like fixating one word at a time as you're reading. So an analysis of contract formation is as follows. Like that's how we read, word for word for word for word, okay? Now, you may be thinking, well, like, what is the alternative to this, right? Well, we can read groups of words, right? If you maybe have gone on a road trip and you're looking at the signs as you're driving underneath the signs, you're looking for the sign that's your destination. So let's say you're going to New York City, right? So you're driving and you see, so when you find the sign that says New York City, do you have the luxury of slowing your car down and making sure you read every single word on the sign, or fixating on every single word on the sign? You can't do that when you're driving, right? That's dangerous. And if you're close to New York City, I've heard that New York City drivers are not the nicest. So you have to read that sign as fast as possible, right? But it is possible, right? This is why, for example, billboards, they don't only have one word. Some maybe have 5 to 7 words, but there is a lot of research on how many words an eyeball can pick up at one time. This might just not be something that you, for one, have ever caught yourself doing, and for two, are comfortable doing either. Okay, so I'm not saying I want you to pick up like 10 words at a time, but let's start training ourselves to pick up just 2 words at a time, then 3, and then we continue to progress from there. Okay, so this is the first old reading habit. We don't want you to just pick up 1 word at a time. We want you to train yourself. Okay, so just start with 2, then 3, then and we'll keep going. So that's the first old reading habit. Second one is regression. Okay, so regression is something that I think a lot of us confuse for being a good thing, but it's not a good thing always. So what would happen in school if our teacher would tell us, okay, you have an assignment, this is what we're going to do classwork, you're going to read this passage and you're going to ask questions. Cool, right? Great. So she tells everybody, stop talking, start reading, start answering the questions. Now, what would happen if for some reason you didn't understand one of the questions? What would the teacher usually tell you to do? He or she would probably say, well, just go back and read it again. If you don't understand it, go back to the passage and read it again, go back to the question and read it again, right? So we kind of apply this principle of going back and rereading to areas we don't necessarily have to do that to, right? So for example, we read one sentence in a paragraph and we don't understand it, right? So you remember your second grade teacher saying, go back and reread it. And we read it again and again and again, and we read the same sentence 10, 15 times, and we don't get anything out of it, right? Does that happen to you? If it does, that's our second old reading habit. We don't want you to read the same sentence over and over again, okay? You can't get anything out of it anymore. Think about this. If you're maybe watching like a movie or a show on Netflix, and opening scene, someone is running through the forest and they're crying and they're scared. Do you ever pause the movie and rewind it and rewatch it because you don't understand why this is happening? Not usually, right? We keep watching because we know at some point we're going to figure out why this is happening, what caused this, and what the resolution is, right? That style that many producers use, many authors use that as well. Okay, and we can't also forget something that is very basic that we learned like in 3rd or 4th grade, and for some reason we seem to forget that as well, which is how a paragraph is written and how typically that first sentence is the main idea followed by supporting statements and supporting facts. So if we don't get one sentence in the sandwich of sentences, then we probably haven't, we should try to get to the end of the paragraph before we then decide if we read again. Now, if you read through the whole paragraph and it still doesn't make sense, that's a different story. But right now, we're only talking about one sentence, okay? So this is our second old reading habit. Our third is subvocalization, okay? Now, subvocalization is the little voice inside of your head that is essentially narrating everything as you're reading. It's not your conscience, okay? So it's not like Jimmy the Cricket when he said, that always let your conscience be your guide. Not that voice. There's another voice when you're reading, and it's narrating everything as you read it, okay? So Have you ever paid attention to that voice? Again, not your conscience, the other voice, right? It sometimes will narrate, whether that's your voice or maybe it's someone else's voice, like who's got a great narrating voice in Hollywood, like Morgan Freeman. He's got a great voice, right? Or David Attenborough, he's got a great voice too. So maybe you hear their voices when you're reading, or maybe you just hear your own voice. The point is we still hear something, right? Now, before we get into why this slows you down and how this slows you down, we have to get into our first speed test. We need to see how fast you're reading, okay? Now, if you are watching this recording in the future, in the future, go to the irisreading.com/handouts link and look for the document called Speed Test 1. This is a Dropbox link, and that's how you can access the document that we're about to read together. If you're reading this today, right now, so you can still access this link. I'll also share it on my screen as well. Just that you know, the text might be a little small, so you may just have to maybe maximize your screen, and you can do that if you know you blow up your screen, or also just pop up the link in a separate tab in your browser, and you can, you know, make the text a little bigger. So anyway, we're going to read speed test 1. I'm going to give you 1 minute to read. Okay, it looks like this. Please don't read it. Please don't look at it. Please don't think about looking at it. Just give me 1 second to explain. Again, I'm going to let you read for 1 minute, and you're going to make a mark or a mental mark of where you finished reading. So let's say, for example, you make it to this point right here. After the minute mark, that means you would have read 206 words in 1 minute, okay? Now, if you don't make it to the end of the line, then you're going to have to subtract however many words you didn't read from the total here. So if you made it to the word have, you didn't read these 2, it means you're going to have to subtract 2 from 221, okay? So I'm going to give you 1 minute to read. I'll set my timer. I'll also disable my webcam and turn off my mic. I don't want to confuse anybody or distract anyone. I'm sorry. So we're going to read for 1 minute, okay? Here we go, everyone. And this is called the age of distraction. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. And stop. So that was the minute mark. Okay, go ahead and make a mark on your paper or just a mental note. Okay. So if you want to let us know what your speed is, go ahead and drop that in the chat section. No pressure. If you don't want to, you don't have to. You might be wondering though, is my speed faster or slower than average? Okay, so we'll share that right now. Average reading speed is 150 to 250 words per minute, okay? This is the average. But keep in mind, if English is not your first language, then this doesn't apply, okay? If English isn't your first language and you still haven't built up a nice big, you know, list of vocabulary words in your brain that you know you're comfortable using, then this doesn't apply. It wouldn't be fair, okay? But if English is a language that you speak well, you have spoken it well for a while now, you're confident in it, then this is your average reading speed. Okay, now if you are beyond this and you're like, oh, I don't need to take this class anymore, well, give us a minute, okay? The average reading speed, if you have attended university or if you are in university, is between 200 to 300 words per minute, okay? So even if you are above this, that doesn't mean that you should stop. We want you to keep on going. Continue to practice and to train yourself. It feels like we have less and less time every day. So what harm could be done with reading a little faster than the averages? Okay, now reading on the computer screen, the average is about 136 words per minute. One of the reasons being, we don't all learn how to read on the computer screen, right? We don't learn how to read on the computer. Actually, none of us, I would imagine, ever learned how to read on an iPad or on a Kindle or on a MacBook, right? I think we were using Hooked on Phonics when we were in kindergarten. Maybe the new generation of kids, they'll read a little faster on the computer screen, but I don't think any of us do. Okay. Now, getting back to self-vocalization, it is that little voice inside of your head. Again, we said that is essentially narrating everything as you are reading. Okay. Now, this is not a very good thing, because if you're hearing the voice inside of your head as you're reading, that really only means you're going as fast as you can talk. And that would be a good thing if the talking speed, average talking speed, was faster than the average reading speed, but it isn't. It's the same thing. So we're in a bit of a pickle now, aren't we? What is faster then? So we've got our average talking speed. What could be faster than our average talking speed? Well, average talking speed is, we don't want that. We're going to actually thinking about our average thinking speed, right? That's faster than our average talking speed. Think about how fast it takes for you to think of something, and then think about how fast it takes for you to actually say what you were thinking. It's not as fast, right? So we want to go as fast as we can think, and consequently, that happens to be our tagline here at Iris Reading, which is reading at the speed of thought. Okay, so we do not want you to read as fast as you can talk. We want you to read as fast as you can think. Let's see, Chris J, good morning from Canada. Well, hello. Starting speed 277 words. That's great. Thanks for sharing. Thank you so much. We think we've taught quite a few workshops in Canada, so very, very happy that you joined us today. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that. So, but back to this. So we said we want you to read as fast as you can think. Now, how then do we read as fast as we think? Well, one of the things is we gotta do something with that voice in our heads, right? Again, I am not saying to turn off your conscience. I'm talking about the other voice, okay? So something we can do so that that voice is not dominating as we're reading. Maybe we can push ourselves to read just 20% faster. Okay, it's at a speed where you can still pay attention. It's a little faster than you're comfortable with, but you can still make do. So really, when you do this, you're not allowing the voice inside of your head to catch up with you. It's back there. Okay, something else that's really helpful is setting up some kind of background sound or some kind of background music. Maybe sitting at a Starbucks or at a cafe where there's noise. Again, not allowing you to necessarily pay attention to what those words are saying in your head. It's drowning out the sound. Okay, so give those a shot. Let us know also. I'll share my email again in the chat, Cynthia@irisreading.com. If you want to reach out and say, hey, I tried this and it worked, or hey, I tried it and it didn't, let me know. Let me know. I'd love to know, okay? Moving on to improving our concentration while reading. Unfortunately, we have so many distractions, and we also have a workshop for that, which is improving focus and productivity. But anyway, if you're having a hard time reading and paying attention, whether it's a subject you don't like, or maybe you just haven't had enough caffeine, or maybe you've had too much caffeine, the point is, we all struggle with it from time to time, right? So we've actually found something very simple that can help you pay attention, and that is using your hand or pen as a guide, okay? And this is why that is so effective. if a bird was to fly in right now where I'm sitting, or you'd see something crawling on the wall, you would stop paying attention to me and you would pay attention to whatever is moving around me, right? Our eyes are attracted to movement, and that's okay. We can use that to our advantage. If you're sitting somewhere, maybe like a study hall, your office, there's a lot of movement, you force this finger, not this one, but your finger in front of you, right? Or a pen, or I use a bobby pin because I always have one on hand. Any small token really, and you're pointing to the groups of words as you're reading, you're forcing your eyes to pay attention down at what's on the paper and not to what's happening around you, okay? It's a simple strategy really, but it is very effective when trying to pay a little more attention, okay? So give it a shot. But you can't always do that when you're on an iPad, right? Or on an iPhone or on any touchscreen phone, really. That's not going to work. So remember we said we created a program that can help you read faster on the computer screen. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just 1 second. And let me just close this out here. And I am going to reshare it with this program. So let me know if you can see my screen. So if you go on the web and you type in accelerator.com right here, this is what will pop up. Okay, so this program again was created by my colleagues here at Iris Reading. I do believe they are working on making this an application for your cell phone, which I think will be great because it'll give me again something to focus on instead of spending my time on TikTok. So what you do is you copy and paste some text into this box. I have already dropped some text in there, so we're not going to do that. You hit begin, and then I really want to just quickly show you some of the settings. So you go to settings right here. It's preset to go 150 words per minute. You can change this. You can go up or down, whatever you want. You can see 2, 3, 4, 5 words at a time, whatever, again, you want. Make this custom to you. Play around with the window height, the window width, the font size, the font color, the background color, all that fun stuff. But we always want to make sure that this is checked off, starting the new chunk at ends of sentences and paragraphs, okay? So we don't want to be thrown off with any punctuation. We actually want to understand what we're reading. Okay, so you hit save. And the article that I've dropped in here in harmony with, I'm not sure if I mentioned, I'm broadcasting from Chicago. Iris Reading is a company born and raised in Chicago, right? All of the staff, I believe all of us minus maybe one are from Chicago. So yeah, we love Chicago. And because of that, we're using an article that has Chicago in the theme. Snowstorm in Chicago delays hundreds of morning murders. If you are not aware, Chicago snow is the worst, right? And it's also not the safest city, but we don't have to get into that right now. I'm pulling this from The Onion, and in case you are not aware, The Onion is America's finest news source, okay? So we are going to read through this article. It's not very long. It's only 166 words, and it's preset to go 150 words a minute. And this is mimicking using your hand or finger as a guide, okay? Because if you were using your hand or finger as a guide, it would be pointing to 2 or 3 or 4 words at a time. Can't do that when reading on the computer screen. So this is going to do it for you. You have to pay attention, because if you stop paying attention, you're going to lose a few words. You're going to have to start the program all over again. So I will disable my webcam and my mic. Here we go. We are going to read through these 166 words at 150 words a minute. Ready, guys? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, so that was The Onion, okay, and that was Snowstorm in Chicago delayed hundreds of morning murders. Let me know what you think about this program. If you feel like it's something you'll use in the future when reading on the computer screen, again, you don't have to do it always, but if you are struggling to pay attention, this may be something that you use. It's just a tool to have in your back pocket in an emergency, right? Now, how do we get better at anything, right? Because the purpose of this all was to help us read faster, right? Well, we have to practice that first, obviously. As you can tell, we are all very big fans of basketball here at Iris Reading. So we're going to practice something called speed drills. So you're purposely going to go faster than you normally read. Okay. Now, if I'm asking you to read faster, that first means I have to train your eyeballs to see the words faster on the page, right? So how do we do that? Well, we're going to train your eyes to do something like this. Well, actually, I don't want to show you on the screen because I feel like that's going to look a little weird, but we're essentially going to train your eyeballs to skim through the page. Now, you don't have to move your head. I'm just doing it. But again, see how my eyes are following my finger? That is what we're going to do with this article. We're going to train our eyes to skim through the material. Now, keep in mind, we are not focusing on comprehension yet. This is still related to speed, so please do not worry about comprehension. You may be thinking, well, if I'm doing that, I'm not going to understand what I'm reading. Yes, you are right, but right now we are not talking about that, okay? We are only talking about speed. We want your eyes to go vroom, vroom through the page. So remember this article that we read together? We read for 1 minute. Hopefully everyone remembers where they finished reading. Okay, so now I am only going to give you 40 seconds to get through 1 minute of reading. Okay, so 40 seconds to get through a minute of reading. So locate on the page where you finished reading the first time, and I'm going to give you 40 seconds to get to that point. Okay, so you're going to have to push yourself a little bit. For these drills, again, I will disable my webcam. I don't want to distract anybody with any faces that I might be making here. So 40 seconds to get through a minute of reading. Are you ready? Here we go. Start your engines. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And one more thing, sorry, before I set the timer. If you get to the final point where you finish reading and there's still time, don't keep going. Just stop. Okay? Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. And very good. That was 40 seconds. We're going to do this again. Now I'm going to give you 35 seconds, okay? Make it your goal to make it to that final point where you finished reading. We're going to do this drill 3 more times after this. Ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. And stop. Very good. That was 35 seconds. We're going to do it again. 30 seconds, okay? 30 seconds. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. And stop. Now we're going to change it up. We are going to spice these drills up. I'm going to give you a minute and 30 seconds to get from the top to the bottom. You can do it. Don't give up. Okay, a minute and 30 seconds to go from the top of the page all the way to the bottom. Ready? Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. And stop. Very good. If you made an excellent job, if you didn't, that's okay. This is our final drill. You ready to roll? Here we go. A minute and 15 to go from the top to the bottom. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Stop. That was our final drill. Kind of feels like we went to the gym, right? But with your for your eyeballs. All right, so now we are going to go back to normal reading. So we are going to see if these speed drills help us read just a little faster. All right, so back to that link, irisreading.com/handouts. You are going to look for the document called speed test number 2. And we will read for 1 minute, and then we're going to compare the second speed to our first speed, and we're going to see if maybe the second speed is a little faster than our first. Okay, so this is the article. It's called How Distractions Hurt Creativity by Leo Babauta. All right, so I will set the timer for 1 minute, and we'll read for 1 minute. Okay, normally. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. And stop. That was 1 minute. All right, so let's calculate our speed. Remember, if you didn't make it to the end of the line, you're gonna have to subtract however many words you didn't read from the total, which is at the end, okay? So if you wanna share what your second speed is with us, go ahead and do that at this time. I'd love to see if we have anyone that made progress. If you didn't make progress, that is okay. Please share anyway. That just means we have to practice a little bit more. We only did about 5 minutes of drills. All right, and you've been reading the way you've been reading for maybe 15, 20, 25 years. So it's going to take a little bit of practice to break through all of those old reading habits, train your eyes to see the words faster on the page. It's all okay. Don't feel bad, okay? But if you want to share if you made improvements, obviously you get the success baby. And even if you didn't, after doing all of these drills, you still deserve the success baby. That was a lot of exercise so early in the morning for your eyes. Okay, and now let's get into how these speed drills work. Okay, we do a lot of driving here at Iris Reading, whether it's to our sister cities, right, or when we're teaching these workshops, pretty much all over the U.S. And we've actually taught them in Puerto Rico and I think Singapore, Canada. But the point is, got a little distracted, is that we spend a lot of time on the road, right? And when you're maybe on the highway or on the expressway for like maybe 2-3 hours, you're going at about 70 miles an hour, right? What happens when you finally get to your exit or to your where you need to go? You sometimes want to go just as fast, right? And you're not really supposed to, because there are stop signs and stoplights, right? And so yeah, right? But the point is, you get used to going at that high speed. Same thing when we're doing these speed drills. You train your eyes to see the words fast on the page so that when it's time to go back to normal reading, your eyes are like, hey, let's go, let's step on the gas a little bit, right? Kristen, I was at 349 at first and now 386 after speed drills, but I can't say my comprehension was super high. Yeah, very happy to see that you made progress, Kristen. And yep, that's a accurate observation. Comprehension, we weren't necessarily focused on that, right? We think about these speed drills like, again, if you played a sport, there's, like, for example, basketball, there's 3 areas of focus, I believe, right? There's offense, there's defense, and there's strength and conditioning. You can't really focus on all 3 at the same time. You have to focus on one, then the other, and then everything ties together, right? So we just focused on speed right now, or 5 seconds ago, and now we're going to tie in the comprehension portion. But thank you for sharing. That makes total sense, and I'm happy to see you made progress. That's wonderful. So that's how our speed drills work. And look at that, Kristen, here we are for improving comprehension. So what do we do here? If we want to improve this comprehension, we're having a hard time, we don't know what to do when we're reading. Another driving analogy, I can't say that I've ever been sent anywhere with hills like this. I'm trying to think. No, I don't think I was ever sent anywhere. I've been sent just to major cities, no hills. We don't have any hills in Chicago. But anyway, if you were driving down a curvy hill, you cannot go 60 miles an hour down this hill, right? That's a pretty bad idea. And, you know, same thing goes for reading. You can't always read through something, just zip right through it. You're going to have to slow down in certain areas and speed up in certain areas as well. Like, for example, we've got this article here, India Skills Famine, okay? So most of us are kind of primed to read from beginning to end. Remember back in grade school, they were like, don't read ahead, don't look at the ending, don't look at anything else until you've made it to that point while reading. But the problem with that is that our attention, you're not really taking into consideration your attention for one, your focus for another, and let's just look at this. So if we were to maybe slow down and speed up in this article, what we mean is that we'd be reading the first sentences of each paragraph a little more, approach them a little more of an analytical form. Okay, so we're not saying read the sentence slowly. We're saying just pay extra attention to that first sentence, because again, something we learned a long time ago, first sentences of each paragraph are usually the main idea of the paragraph. So what would happen if we read through all of the main ideas in this article? Could we boost our comprehension even before reading the rest of the article? Now, unfortunately, we don't have enough time to read through all of these main ideas, but you can practice this on your own. If you did have an article, just read all of those first sentences and then see what is your overall comprehension after reading the first sentences. On top of that, it does force you to pay a little more attention, right? So this is something we want you guys to do whenever you're reading something. Remember to slow down and speed up in certain areas. Now, this introduces a very, very, very important principle here at Iris Reading, and that is to inspect what you read. Now, some people call this pre-reading, but you'll notice in a moment why we call it inspecting. But when we're talking about inspecting, we're saying, again, just kind of get the gist of it, see the lay of the land, see what's happening out there before you actually dive into whatever you're going to read, right? I always share that I grew up on the island of Puerto Rico. It's very hot and it's very humid, and I grew up in an area on the island that didn't have electricity or water. So I always, I tell my friends when I was back in Chicago that I felt like I was Jane from Tarzan. That's how humid and how lush the mountains are from where I'm from. But anyway, point is, it's super hot. So obviously as kids, we would want to jump into any puddle or river of water that we found, right? And so you learn very quickly that you have to inspect these little bodies of water. You can't just jump into them, because there are sometimes things that will maybe electrocute you or bite you. And so you can't just jump into anything you see, right? You got to inspect, make sure it's safe, make sure no animal has made it their home before you jump into it. Same thing with inspecting. You have no idea what to expect, right? When you're going to read something brand spanking new. So read the first sentences. It's almost like sticking your toe in the water to make sure that it's at good temperature, right? So give that a go. Let's get into these strategies for reading complex material, which, again, we're talking about inspecting. Okay, now if you're reading something out of a college textbook, for example, these are all the things you want to look for. So the intro, the headings and subheadings, words in bold and/or italics, titles of charts, tables and diagrams, the conclusion, as well as any questions that may have been published in this piece. Okay, so all of this you want to look for, you want to inspect for this before you read. And you can do this with any chapter out of a book, any report, any journal article. You can inspect a menu. If you go to one of those restaurants that have like 9-page menus, instead of paging through each of them, go through and inspect each thing section by section so you have a good idea of what is where, okay? Now, if we were going to inspect a chapter out of a textbook, like a business textbook, we would actively read through everything in the intro, right? As we keep paging through here, we see some vocabulary words, we see some headings, we see some subheadings, we see some references at the bottom. So we're going to, again, just read through them. We're not reading the entire page. We're only looking at, again, the highlights. We see a table, we see some details under the table, so we would make note of the descriptive sentence under the table, not necessarily everything inside the table. Again, we page through, we're not seeing anything too spicy here. So, and we can think about what we read and say, okay, I remember my professor said that we'd be talking about this, this, and this, and that lines up with a few of the vocabulary words or a few of the headings I found when inspecting. So I do have to read this chapter. Or maybe you decide that you don't, but let's just pretend that for a second you do have to read it. You already read the intro, so there is no reason for you to reread the introduction. Okay, we'd start right here. Now that might seem like a common sense suggestion, but you'd be surprised sometimes students when we're overwhelmed, and I'm also a student, we're overwhelmed, and we're just anxious about the material. We kind of just go on a continuous loop and read things we don't have to read again. Okay, so this is our IRIS method. I'm going to show 2 steps right now. So some people call it pre-reading, but we have an acronym after our company name, IRIS. So we're going to call it inspecting. So first we decide if, first we inspect whatever it is we need to read, and then we read it. Okay, and we're actually going to do that right now. We're going to inspect this article. So it's called Single Tasking and Productivity. Okay, so I'm going to give you about a minute to just read through everything that is in yellow. So inspect what is in yellow. So the title, the introductory quote, the introductory paragraph, all of the headings. That's all I want you to read right now. Okay, here we go. Go ahead and okay, so we just inspected this. Now we're going to finish reading the article. And you'll notice there's a timer going off in the bottom right-hand corner here. It's going to give you up to 4 minutes to finish reading the article, which means I don't need you, and you don't need to either, to read through anything you have already read, or don't reread anything. We were paying attention, we were reading actively, so there's no reason for us to reread anything we've already read. We're going to finish reading the article. We're going to make a note of the final time. We're going to match that up with the final speed. Okay, so if it takes you 1:30 to finish reading the article, that means your final speed for today would have been 561 words, okay, a minute. Here we go. Let's finish reading the article. 3, 2, 1, go. All right, everyone. So sorry I went a little over time today. We're just going to quickly wrap up. So hopefully you got your final time for today, and we've seen gradual improvement throughout the session. These are the final steps in the IRIS method. So we talked about inspecting and reading. The next steps are inquire and store. So definitely check out our website, irisreading.com, to learn a little bit more about our additional workshops. We do have a note-taking workshop, a memory workshop, right, where we talk about asking all of the right questions. And my favorite, which was the memory techniques workshop. We didn't necessarily talk about anything related to storing, so we're going to substitute that as for speed drill. Unofficial homework, again, I can't see if you've actually done it, but if you do it, that'd be great. And if you want to reach out and let me know, you can also do that. So if you found out today that your average reading speed is about 250 words per minute, just as an example, that means we want you to practice at double the speed. Unofficial homework. So we want you to do these speed drills at 500 words per minute, which means we want you to read through something and then do a speed drill on it in half the time at double the speed. Okay, so skim through what you just read in half the time at double the speed. Hopefully you're doing about 10 minutes of drills later today, every day, and we see some improvement. So we inspect, we read, we time ourselves, read for 20 minutes, ask questions, and then do a final or a speed drill, for 10 minutes. Remember, we did a lot of speed drills today. You should have that pretty fresh in your memory. If you're maybe reading for 12 minutes, then do a 6-minute speed drill. Don't forget about Accelerator. It's a great tool to use when reading on the computer screen. We're going to quickly share just a recap. If you have any questions, please let me know. We talked about first we started off with how fast you currently read. We got a baseline, right? We talked about improving your focus while reading, so using your hand or finger as a guide, improving your comprehension. We read all of the first sentences of each paragraph with slowing down and speeding up technique. We talked about reading faster on the computer screen with Accelerator. Great tool to use. Please use it. Please share it. We talked about building up speed with practice, a ton of speed drills. Didn't we do that? And hopefully we saw improvements. Some of you did drop your comments in and I was able to read them, so thank you for sharing. And our final point, strategies for reading complex information. So we talked about inspecting, okay, and how important this is before you actually start to read. Once again, please check out our social media. It's a great way to get a hold of us. It is connected and synchronized to our devices. So if you want to send us a direct message, you can do that. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. All right. Thank you all once again for sharing. If you would like to take an advanced version of today's class, you can do that on our website, irisreading.com. And with the code BOOKLOVERS, we'll offer you 30% off. Right. Also, if you want the recording or the slides to today's presentation, you could watch the recording on here. But if you want to reach out about the slides or a tip sheet, feel free to reach out and we can get that to you. Thank you all for stopping by and sticking around, and we hope to see you in a future session, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.